Hello, beautiful Libra soul. Let me ask you something. Have you felt it building lately? That pressure in your chest? That quiet knowing that something massive is about to shift, but you don't know how or when? Because here's the truth. Tomorrow, Wednesday, December 17th, your world is meant to crack open, not to destroy you, but to release you into a life that's bigger, freer, and more abundant than you've ever known. This video is not just a horoscope. It's a divine message. One that your soul chose to receive. You didn't find this video by accident. Whether you were scrolling in silence or searching for clarity, the universe placed this message in front of you for a reason. And no, I'm not here to tell you vague inspiration. I'm here to tell you that the chaos you've been fearing is actually the key to your freedom emotionally, spiritually, and financially. Libra, you've carried the weight of others for too long. You've smiled while breaking. You've kept the peace even when it cost you your peace. And now, the universe is intervening because it knows you're ready for more, even if you're afraid to admit it. Tomorrow marks a cosmic turning point. The moon conjuncts Uranus, and your ruling planet Venus squares Pluto all at once. This is no ordinary transit. It's a cosmic eruption designed to remove everything that no longer belongs in the next chapter of your life. And if you've been seeing repeated numbers like 111, 717, or even dreaming vividly, this is not coincidence. This is confirmation. Now, let me pause for a moment and say thank you deeply. Every like, every comment, every share, and every subscription you give to this channel, Zodiac Whisper Tarot, is not just digital engagement. It's a sacred energetic exchange that fuels our mission to bring these transformational messages directly to you. I feel honored that you're here, and I want to invite you to stay with me until the very end because what's coming in this reading is powerful. I believe that if you're here, you are meant to hear all of it. And before we dive in, tell me in the comments, what pulled you here today? Was it something you've been sensing lately? Was it an unresolved question in your heart? Or maybe, deep down, you just know you've outgrown the version of you that's been surviving and you're finally ready to live. Write it below. Share a number that's been following you, or simply say, I claim my freedom. Let this be your energetic agreement with the universe. You're not here by chance. You're here by alignment. And I promise you by the end of this video, something within you will shift. Let's begin. Sometimes, Libra, life doesn't wait for us to be ready. It simply moves like the tide crashing against a shoreline that has held itself in place for too long. And that's exactly what's happening now. When the moon conjuncts Uranus and your ruler, Venus, clashes with Pluto, we're no longer talking about subtle shifts. This is a cosmic eruption. A soul quake. The Tower card did not appear by accident. It is the loudest call the universe can send when you've ignored the quieter signs for too long. But let's be clear. This collapse isn't chaos for the sake of destruction. It is divine disruption. It is intervention. It is a karmic correction, not punishment, but purification. If your relationships have suddenly started falling apart for no apparent reason. If your job feels unstable, like the rug is being pulled beneath your feet. If people are walking away, or you find yourself questioning every bond you thought was forever. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. And it's okay if it doesn't feel like it at first. You see, Libra, You were never meant to keep playing the role of the peacekeeper while your soul is screaming for liberation. You are not here to shrink so others can feel safe. And you are not obligated to carry responsibilities that were never yours in the first place. This karma gate? It's opening now. And no matter how tempting it is to hold on to what's comfortable, what's familiar, or what once gave you a sense of control, you can't go back through it. Not anymore. Energetically, this moment is like being pulled out of a dark, narrow hallway into a wide, sunlit field, but you're still clutching old baggage. And here's the truth. Not everything or everyone gets to follow you into this next chapter. The relationships, beliefs, or habits that were built on guilt, fear, or false loyalty, they're being dismantled because they're standing between you and the abundance that's trying to reach you. This is why the tower shows up. Because the foundation was cracked, and you were too loyal to the illusion to walk away on your own. And I know. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. It feels personal. But what if I told you it's not about loss, it's about release? What if this is God, the universe, or divine timing stepping in to take away what's weighing you down so you can finally rise into what's truly meant for you? You don't have to figure everything out today. You don't have to rebuild your life overnight. You just have to let go of what's crumbling. And trust that what comes next, the new job, the real connection, the unexpected breakthrough, has already been prepared for you. You're not being abandoned. You're being redirected. And everything that's leaving? It's making room for something much, much better. I know we all carry our own stories. Maybe your journey has been filled with silent battles no one saw. Maybe you've given so much of yourself that there's barely anything left. But I want you to remember something. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to rise. And you are allowed to say, this is no longer mine to carry. So, Libra, if you're feeling this shift, if your world feels like it's breaking open, you are exactly where you need to be. Comment below and let me know. What have you been sensing lately? What's been falling apart? Or quietly preparing to be released? Share a number, a word, or just say, I'm ready. Let that be your first step through this karmic door. We're just getting started. And what's on the other side will astonish you. I know we all carry our own stories. Maybe your journey has been filled with silent battles no one saw. Maybe you've given so much of yourself that there's barely anything left. But I want you to remember something. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to rise. And you are allowed to say, this is no longer mine to carry. So, Libra, if you're feeling this shift, if your world feels like it's breaking open, you are exactly where you need to be. Comment below and let me know. What have you been sensing lately? What's been falling apart? Or quietly preparing to be released? Share a number, a word, or just say, I'm ready. Let that be your first step through this karmic door. We're just getting started. And what's on the other side will astonish you. Let me know when you're ready for part 2. I'll keep the style consistent, connected, and emotionally resonant. 4. Veo vi nuoi dan dat voi kien tuk ve chiem tin, kung hong dao, nang luong vu tru. Duok viet boi nuoi dan dat thuok top 0.1% trong lin vuk chiem tin taro nang luong hok self-help tri lu va lut hap dan, phong catch viet by qua video nai la ket hop jua ne thuot katrian tom lin. Cam suk tri lu vakuyen kich han dong tich cuc. He viet emotifan jai tik sao sak va hap dan vey nia qua fan nai. Lien hien hung kien tuk ban ko de lam noi dung hap dan han. Va ko the lien he kien tuk loi chua moi ge geo hat duk tin trong doi song ban ron hok chua va and hung. Thepla hien dai ka chien that ve su can theep than ky de trien kai, kong can trick dan chi dua ra loi kuyen nain hangda noi dung fong puhan. Kong lien he tom lin. Dung jong van nain hang, phi ko ket noi voi fan truok du, viet hoa with grave n toi with grave n bang tiang on kio my 6002. Lu y la noi dung phi viet lien mok, kong ghi de muc, kong ghi mo dao va ket tuk, thay doi catch bat dao don van kok ne. 2. Ti som wa tichu kung luk sup do. Hol ban ko tung hoi, tai sa toi ko gang het suc mum wa Thursday van roy bo toi. Boy v ban de hai sin chin min qua lao de ju su kan bang cho nuoi kok. La thien ban mang su men lam ka noi, juhoa kai, jup moi nuoi. En hung ai dang ju ban? Kai ban gong qua lao, vu tru se byuk ban gin goi doi kai bang mot ku dan man. Su sup du nai la de ban dung lai, buong te, va cho fep mot dong nang luong moi doak che veo. Herbs self-help goi y, hit those sao 3 lon moi sang. Ghi chep lai and hung diu keen ban cam thay by, bat byuk. Tuen bo, twa chan nain hang. Twa chan jai thot. Certainly. Below is a 600-word passage written in the voice of a top 0.1% guide in astrology, tarot, energy healing, and self-help, continuing part 2 of the video script. This segment explains with depth and emotional clarity why everything seems to collapse at once for Libra, blending astrological wisdom, therapeutic storytelling, and actionable self-help advice. The tone is gentle, mystical, and empowering, designed to support personal transformation while avoiding overt religious language, but still infused with a sense of grace and divine timing. Have you ever found yourself asking, why is everything falling apart at the same time? As if the things you once relied on, relationships, work, emotional strength, suddenly began slipping through your fingers, no matter how hard you try to hold on. For Libra, this kind of collapse rarely feels like chaos. It feels like betrayal. Especially when you've given so much of yourself just to keep everyone else steady. You were born under the sign of balance, harmony, and fairness, and somewhere along the way, that became a burden. A role you had to play, even when your own needs were silenced in the process. But what if this collapse isn't punishment? What if it's protection? What if this is the moment when the universe finally says, enough? You don't have to carry this anymore. When Venus, your ruling planet, squares Pluto, the planet of transformation, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. We are forced to see what we've been hiding from. And when the moon aligns with Uranus, emotional shockwaves are inevitable. These transits don't ask permission. They sweep through like a windstorm, removing what you were too afraid to let go of. But here's the part we often overlook. The breakdown is not the end. It's the invitation. Sometimes we try to keep things going far past their expiration date out of loyalty, guilt, or fear. And Libra, you are deeply loyal, often to your own detriment. You make excuses for others, You justify mistreatment. You stay in jobs that drain you and relationships that keep you small, all in the name of keeping the peace. But inner peace cannot thrive in a space where you are constantly being pulled in opposing directions. The collapse you're experiencing right now isn't random. It's a divine intervention. One that says, rest. Reset. Reclaim your energy. It might feel like everything is happening at once. And in many ways, it is. Because this is not a gentle transition, it is an energetic detox. The pressure has been building for years, and your soul has been whispering for change. But when the whispers were ignored, the universe responded with a louder voice. And if you're honest with yourself, didn't you already feel it coming? That something wasn't sustainable? That certain relationships were held together with threads you no longer had the energy to tie? That your heart was tired of pretending it was okay? Sometimes, collapse is the only way the heart can finally speak truth. So what can you do now, in the middle of this unraveling? Start small. Each morning, before the noise of the world begins, take 3 deep breaths. Place your hand on your chest and say, I am safe, even when things are uncertain. Then, write down one thing that feels like an obligation, something you're doing because you think you have to. Ask yourself, what would it look like if I let this go? This isn't about giving up. It's about giving yourself back. Every breakdown contains a seed. The seed of reinvention. Of clarity. Of true alignment. But the soil must be cleared first. That's what this moment is. You're not being torn down, you're being prepared. Let yourself loosen your grip. You don't need to hold it all together anymore. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world alone. And somewhere in the quiet, after the storm passes, you'll feel something miraculous. Your own soul rising to meet the life it's been praying for. If this message speaks to your experience, let me know in the comments. Write, I choose release, or share one thing you're ready to let go of. Your words matter, and they just might give someone else the courage to let go too. We're only halfway through. What's coming next will show you how the pieces begin to come back together. But this time, in your favor. Not all awakenings come with lightning. Sometimes, it's a quiet knock, a feeling you can't shake, a sentence you overhear that lands too deeply to ignore, or a realization that's been growing silently inside you. Libra, what's arriving now is not new. It's something your soul has known for a long time, and on December 17th, it will finally reveal itself in the light. You may receive a message. You might stumble into a conversation that wasn't meant for you. Or you could simply look someone in the eye and realize, without them saying a word, that their presence no longer aligns with your path. This isn't betrayal. It's truth arriving. And the thing about truth is it doesn't break you. It breaks what was false. When the judgment card appears in a reading, it signals a call from within that can no longer be ignored. It's that sacred moment when the masks fall off your own and those of the people around you, and something deep inside whispers, enough. Enough pretending. Enough justifying. Enough dimming your light to avoid discomfort. When judgment comes, it is not punishment. It is invitation. A divine recalibration of the energy around you and inside you. Astrologically, this is a convergence of karmic pressure and emotional clarity. Mercury retrograde is thinning the veil between what's said and what's meant. Venus square Pluto is making it impossible to stay in false harmony. And your intuition, always so strong, is now undeniable. You're not guessing anymore. You're remembering. It's easy to be afraid of the truth, not because we can't handle it, but because we know it demands change. Truth doesn't let us stay the same. It reshapes what we tolerate, who we trust, and how we lead our lives. That's why this moment is so sacred, because it allows you to stop carrying what was never yours and start living from a place of clean, clear integrity. And no matter how this truth shows up, whether in a relationship, a job, or within your own heart, you are strong enough to meet it. You don't need to analyze it to death. You don't need 10 reasons or a spreadsheet of pros and cons. You just need to recognize the moment when something inside you exhales and says, yes. I knew this all along. If it helps, take time for quiet reflection today. Light a candle, take a walk, or write down the things you've been too afraid to say out loud. You don't need to share it with anyone. But give your truth permission to speak. Because the more you avoid it, the more your energy drains. But when you let it rise, when you allow your clarity to take its rightful place, a weight lifts, and peace returns. And yes, I know that facing truth can feel like losing something. But what you're actually losing is confusion, fragmentation, and self-doubt. What you gain is clarity, power, and a foundation you can finally trust. The verse says, the truth will set you free. But what it doesn't say is, it might shatter everything you once thought was stable and still be the best thing that ever happened to you. So if today brings a revelation, meet it with open hands. Not everything you lose is a loss. And not everything you discover will break you. Some things will make you whole. Leave a comment below. What truth have you felt rising inside you lately? Even if you're not ready to say it out loud, type, I am ready to see clearly. That alone is a declaration. That alone begins the shift. You're doing beautifully. Stay with me. What comes next is where the breakthrough begins. What's fascinating about energy is that it flows in direct relationship to your willingness to release. And nowhere is that more evident than in the realm of money. Libra, you've been through enough recently to know, abundance doesn't come just because we work hard. It comes when we are truly open, not just in intention, but in space. And space requires surrender. Right now, the tarot reveals two potent energies, the Six of Pentacles and the Empress. Together, they don't just speak of cash flow or financial gain, they speak of divine restoration. Of karmic balance returning. Of life finally starting to give back to you after a season of pouring from an empty cup. But this flow has conditions. And not the kind that punish, the kind that protect. You can't receive a new currency while clinging to the scarcity of the past. You can't say yes to wealth while holding emotional contracts with struggle. That's not because you're unworthy, it's because vibrationally, the new and the old cannot coexist in the same hands. Energetically, money is not just a tool. It's a mirror. It reflects back to you your beliefs, your boundaries, your readiness. And what we're seeing now, especially around December 17th, with Venus harmonizing through cosmic pressure, is that your worth is finally aligning with what you're about to attract. But only if you've let go of what's no longer in alignment. So I want to ask you something, and I invite you to answer it honestly. What are you still holding on to that quietly tells the universe, I don't believe I deserve more yet? Is it a relationship that costs you emotional bandwidth every day? Is it an old project you've kept alive out of guilt or fear of failure? Is it a belief that money has to be earned through struggle and sacrifice? Let me offer a gentle reminder: money isn't only given in exchange for exhaustion. It flows more easily when you feel connected to purpose, peace, and pleasure. That's why the Empress shows up now. She is the embodiment of effortless receiving, of blooming without begging. She doesn't chase, she magnetizes. And yes, financial blessings may come in surprising forms: a debt suddenly repaid, an opportunity once rejected finding its way back, or a stranger appearing at just the right time with a referral or suggestion that turns everything around. These are not accidents. They are answers to the energetic clarity you've begun to cultivate. This week, be mindful of color frequencies that support your energy shift. Wear or meditate with green, which promotes emotional healing and trust in new beginnings. Surround yourself with bronze or gold tones, which amplify receptivity and activate the solar plexus, your personal power center. And most importantly, affirm to yourself, out loud if you can: I release the old to welcome the new. I am open to the support of the universe. Say it until your nervous system believes it. Say it until your hands loosen around what's no longer meant to be held. You are not being asked to struggle for abundance. You are being asked to prepare for it, to clear emotional debt, to surrender the illusion of control, and to trust that what is yours cannot miss you, but you must be ready to hold it. If this message resonates, I invite you to comment below: I am ready to receive. Or simply share one thing you've recently let go of. Your story might help someone else do the same. And in doing so, you become not just the receiver of a blessing but the ripple that carries it forward. Stay with me. What's ahead is not just a change in wealth, it's a transformation of how you define value altogether. Some patterns come back not to be repeated, but to test how far you've grown. And Libra, this is your test. After all the clearing, after all the emotional turbulence, after everything you've released, comes the true moment of decision. Will you return to what once broke you, or will you choose to rise differently this time? This phase isn't just about clarity. It's about boundaries. It's about recognizing that forgiveness doesn't mean access. That just because something returns, doesn't mean it's meant to stay. You've done too much inner work to allow old energies to walk back in, wearing new words and the same old patterns. As a Libra, your heart is wide. Your empathy is deep. You can see the good in almost anyone, even in those who've hurt you. But healing isn't about romanticizing the past, it's about honoring your growth by making different choices when life brings the old back around. During Venus-Pluto transits, which we are currently navigating, past energies often resurface. People show up with apologies. Opportunities that once slipped away return for reconsideration. Emotions long buried begin to stir. And your Libra heart, craving harmony, might be tempted to say, maybe this time, it will be different. But before you go back, pause. Not everything that returns is meant to be welcomed. You see, retrograde and Pluto energy doesn't bring things back to fix them. It brings them back to expose the cracks more clearly. To give you a second look, not a second chance. This is a karmic checkpoint, not a doorway to rewind your story. So when the person who ghosted you suddenly wants to talk, watch what they do, not just what they say. When an old job or project reappears, ask yourself, will this nourish me now, or is it just familiar? When unresolved feelings emerge from the shadows, you don't have to respond. Sometimes the only answer needed is awareness and silence. Not all doors are meant to be reopened. And the truth is, if it truly belonged to your future, it wouldn't have left your path the way it did. This is where energetic maturity comes in. You're not the same version of you that accepted crumbs and called it a feast. You've learned how to sit with discomfort instead of running back to what's easy. You've built new standards not just for others, but for yourself. And now, you're being asked to honor them. Think of this moment as sacred. Think of your energy as a garden you've finally cleared of weeds. Why let something back in just because it knocks politely at the gate? You get to choose what's allowed in. You are the guardian now. And protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's essential. If your heart still aches a little at the thought of letting go for good, that's okay. Healing isn't about not feeling, it's about not folding. It's about holding yourself gently through the ache and still choosing what honors your future more than what comforts your past. So the next time something or someone from your past returns, ask yourself this: is this here to stay or simply here to confirm that I've finally outgrown it? You are not a rehearsal space for other people to figure themselves out. You are not a holding pattern. You are not a reset button. You are a whole, evolving, radiant being, and not everything deserves a second round in your orbit. Say it with me if this resonates: I do not revisit what once dismantled me. I choose what builds me forward. And if your soul feels this truth, drop a comment below. I am not a practice field. I choose aligned connections only. Or share your own boundary. Let this be your declaration to yourself, and to the universe. What's next, Libra, is not about repeating. It's about rewriting. And you get to decide how the next page turns. Libra, as we come to the end of this journey together, I want you to take a deep breath, not just to pause, but to feel the full weight of what's shifting within you. December 17th is not just a date on the calendar. It's a spiritual pivot. A quiet revolution. A threshold where everything begins to separate: who you used to be, and who you're becoming. You're not being pushed into this new chapter by chance. You are being positioned, elevated, recentered into the version of yourself that doesn't just survive, but leads, receives, and thrives. But here's the truth: no one can make that shift for you. You have to choose it. You have to decide that your peace is worth more than the comfort of the familiar. That your truth matters more than approval. That your future is more sacred than the fear that's been whispering, "Stay small." Chaos, Libra, is not the enemy. In fact, sometimes it's the clearest sign that you're being guided somewhere bigger. So I ask you now, can you trust that what feels like falling apart might actually be the universe realigning you with the life you prayed for? Can you release the idea that things have to make sense right now, and instead ask, what is this moment trying to open within me? What if the delay was actually protection? What if the person walking away is creating space for someone more aligned to step in? What if the answer you've been seeking has been buried beneath layers of distraction and now, finally, you're ready to hear it? Libra, I know your heart is big. I know it's easier to keep the peace than to disrupt the pattern. But your soul wasn't born to play small roles in someone else's story. You are the main character now. This is your moment to rewrite the script, not in reaction to chaos, but in deep alignment with your truth. So I want to invite you to sit with these questions tonight. What part of me have I been hiding to make others comfortable? What am I holding on to that no longer reflects who I am? And if I were to fully believe I am supported by the universe, what would I do differently tomorrow? Let your answers be honest. Let them be messy. Let them be yours. And if something in this video spoke to your heart, I invite you to comment below, not just for me, but as an energetic agreement with your next level. Say, I choose myself today, or I welcome the chaos as my companion. Or simply write what part of this message landed deepest for you. Because your words have power. Your voice has frequency. And here, in this space, you are seen, heard, and supported. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss an update. This is more than a channel, this is your spiritual anchor, your reminder that you're not alone. This is Zodiac Whisper Tarot. And we're just getting started. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing your light. And always remember, you are not waiting for a miracle. You are the miracle. I'll see you in the next reading, Soul Family. Until then, stay open, stay grounded, and stay true.